Let me start with something that genuinely surprised me. When we posted our last Social Security video, the comments didn't just disagree, they collided. People weren't casually debating. They weren't politely comparing options. They were defending decisions that clearly mattered to them on a very deep level. Some comments were calm and thoughtful, some were emotional, some were angry, and some were defensive. And as I read through them carefully, one thing became very clear. Almost no one was actually arguing about the math. They were arguing about fear, about trust, about control, and about whether they were going to be okay. Because for many people watching this, Social Security does not supplement their life. It funds it. And decisions that fund someone's entire life are never just financial decisions. They are emotional. They are personal. And they deserve more care than slogans or one-line answers. So today, we're slowing this conversation way down. This is not financial advice. We are not telling you what to do. We are not here to judge anyone's decision. What we are doing is continuing the conversation from our last Social Security video with real 2025 facts, clear rules, and empathy for the fact that people are standing in very different places. And by the end of this video, I don't want you to feel pushed towards choosing between 62, 65, 67, or 70. I want you to feel calmer, clearer, and more confident, even if you still haven't decided, because clarity matters more than certainty. Why does this topic explode every single time? There are few topics on YouTube that almost are guaranteed emotional reactions. There's politics, healthcare, housing, and Social Security. But Social Security hits differently because it combines three things that humans struggle with at a very deep level. First, we don't know how long we'll live. Second, we're afraid of running out of money. And third, we don't fully trust large institutions to keep promises forever. And that combination creates pressure. So when someone comments something like, "You'd be crazy not to take it at 62, or only an idiot would leave money on the table," they're not really talking to you or to me. They're talking to their own fears. And once you understand that, the entire tone of this debate changes. Before we respond to any argument, we need to be clear about what does not change, no matter what you believe or how emotional this topic feels. Here are the core Social Security rules as they exist today. If you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67, and you can claim Social Security as early as age 62, but doing so permanently reduces your benefit. And you can delay claiming past full retirement age, and your benefit increases for each year that you wait. Those delayed retirement credits increase your benefit by roughly 8% per year, and those credits stop at age 70. After age 70, there is no benefit for waiting, and once you claim Social Security, your benefit is largely locked in for life. These are not strategies. They are the structure everything else sits on. Everything else, early, on time, or late, is a personal decision layered on top of these rules. One reason this debate gets so heated is that many people are arguing with imaginary numbers. Some assume that benefits are tiny and useless. Others assume benefits are massive and life-changing. For most people, the truth is somewhere in the middle. In 2025, the average monthly Social Security benefits roughly looked like this. Claiming early around age 62, the average benefit is in the mid-1300 range. At full retirement age around 67, the average benefit is closer to the high 1900 range. And at 70, the average benefit is just over 2100 a month. Now those are averages, not maximums. And that difference, several $100s per month, lasts for life and adjusts for inflation. So yes, waiting can meaningfully increase your income, but that does not automatically mean that waiting is right for everyone. And that's where the emotions take over. At this point, someone usually brings up the break-even age. You've probably heard it. Break-even is 78. No, it's 80. Oh, I heard it's closer to 82. Break-even simply compares total dollars received if you claim early versus if you wait. And that's it. It was never designed to predict how long you'll live. What break-even does not account for is stress, health, inflation late in life, and how hard it is to adjust spending in your 80s. That's why the break-even arguments feel cold to people. They reduce a human life to a spreadsheet. The real question isn't, will I beat the break-even age? The real question is, which choice gives me stability across the life that I actually have? And that brings us to the comments themselves. When you strip away the emotion, almost every Social Security argument falls into one of three camps. None of them are stupid, none of them are immoral, and none of them apply to everyone. So comment camp number 1, you don't know when you'll die, so I'll take it early. This is the most common comment by far, and it deserves respect. This argument often comes from people who have lost parents early. They have health concerns, watch someone delay or barely collect, or they simply need income now. So when someone says, you don't know when you'll die, what they're really saying is I value certainty today more than possibilities later. And that's not irrational. Social Security is guaranteed income. It's inflation adjusted, and it's not tied to the market, and it is paid every month for life. For someone under financial or emotional stress, that first check can feel like relief, not strategy. And relief has value. But here's the part that creates tension. When you claim at 62, your benefit is roughly 70% of what it would be at full retirement age. And that reduction is permanent. So the real risk isn't only, what if I die early? It's also, what if I don't? Because later in life, it's harder to work. It's harder to cut your expenses, and it's harder to keep up with inflation. Early claiming can reduce stress now, but maybe increase stress later. Neither outcome is guaranteed. That uncertainty is exactly why people argue this so fiercely. Comment camp number 2 is the government is broke. Social Security won't be there. Now, this comment isn't really about Social Security. It's about trust. People who say this have often lived through layoffs, pension failures, recessions, or broken promises. So when they hear you should wait, they think, if I don't take it now, I might lose it. And here's the reality, without the politics or the hype. Social Security is projected to face a funding shortfall in the mid-2030s if no changes are made. And that does not mean that benefits disappear. Under current law, ongoing payroll taxes would still cover roughly 75 to 80% of the scheduled benefits. Historically, Congress has always acted, usually by adjusting taxes, formulas, or income caps. Could benefits change? Yes. Could higher earners be impacted most? Possibly. Could the program vanish entirely? We're not sure, but that has never happened. And here's the part that many people miss. Policy risk affects early and late claimers alike. So taking it early does not fully insulate you, and waiting does not automatically expose you. So this argument is really about wanting control in an uncertain system, and that makes total sense. Comment camp number 3. I want the biggest check possible, so I'm waiting. Now, this group often sounds confident, sometimes very confident. What they're really saying is, I'm planning for longevity. Delayed retirement credits increase your benefit by about 8% per year after full retirement age, up to age 70. And that increase is guaranteed, it's inflation adjusted, and it's not dependent on market returns. There is no other investment that offers that combination. For people who are healthy, have savings, and can cover the years before Social Security, and they value long-term income stability, waiting can make a lot of sense. But there is a risk to this too. If waiting requires draining savings aggressively, constant anxiety, and panic during market downturns, then the emotional cost may outweigh the financial benefit. And that brings us to the real heart of this decision. The real problem isn't the age, it's the years before Social Security. Most arguments fixate on the claiming age, but the real stress lives in the years before that age. These are the bridge years. If the bridge feels unstable, every option feels scary. And if the bridge feels solid, every option feels calmer. And this is why people with similar numbers make very different choices. If there's one thing that became obvious reading through thousands of comments, it's this. Most people aren't arguing about when to take Social Security. They're arguing about how they got to where they are. Some people are scared, some people are confident, some people are angry, some people feel judged, and some people feel invisible. And a lot of that tension comes from one missing piece in the conversation. Not everyone who takes Social Security early is doing it from fear. And not everyone who waits is doing it from privilege. So let's talk about the group that often gets misunderstood and often gets shouted down in the comments. There's a group of people who take Social Security early at 62 or 65, not because they have to, but because they plan to. These are the individuals who have spent decades working consistently, saving intentionally, investing patiently, and thinking ahead long before retirement was close. They may have a pension, a bridge account, rental income, significant taxable investments, or a mix of all of these. So when they claim Social Security early, it's not panic-driven, it's strategic. They might use Social Security to supplement a pension, reduce withdrawals from investments, smooth cash flow in volatile markets, reinvest part or even all of their benefits, or increase flexibility and optionality. For these individuals, early claiming isn't about fear of dying early. It's about risk management. It's about saying, I don't need this income, but I can put it to work for me. And that's an important decision. When someone says, I took Social Security early and invested it, that statement often carries decades of discipline behind it. It usually means they delayed gratification, they lived below their means. They invested when it was uncomfortable, and they stayed the course during downturns. Their younger self made choices that their older self now benefits from. And that deserves respect, not suspicion or resentment. Because preparation matters, long-term effort matters, and it's okay to acknowledge that without shaming anyone else. This is where we need to slow down again, because honoring preparation does not mean dismissing hardship. And this is where a lot of online conversations lose empathy. Not everyone has had the same income opportunity, the same access to pensions, the same stable employment, and the same health. And even people who did everything right can still get knocked off course. This is the part that spreadsheets don't capture. Illness, disability, the loss of a spouse, a child who needs lifelong care, a parent who needs years of support, a market crash at the wrong moment, a job loss late in life. Those are not failures. Those are human experiences. And when someone says, I planned, I saved, I worked hard, and it still fell apart, that deserves compassion, not judgment, because effort does not guarantee outcome. When life has been unpredictable or painful, certainty becomes more valuable. For someone who has been through hardship, early Social Security can feel stabilizing. It can reduce anxiety and it can restore a sense of control. And that matters. Not because it's mathematically optimal, but because it supports emotional survival. Retirement planning that ignores emotional reality isn't planning at all. If there's one dividing line that shows up over and over again in the comments, it's not 62 versus 70. It's flexibility versus constraint. People who feel flexible tend to wait or optimize, and people who feel constrained tend to prioritize certainty. Neither mindset is wrong. They are responses to lived experiences. At this point, most people watching are thinking some version of, okay, but what does this mean for me? And this is where the conversation finally becomes useful, because averages and arguments don't make decisions. Your numbers do. So how much will you actually get from Social Security? This is one of the most empowering things that you can do, and surprisingly, few people actually do it. Instead of guessing, instead of relying on headlines, instead of listening to strangers online, you can see your own benefits directly from the source. So how you do that is you go to SSA.GOV, create a My Social Security account. Once you're logged in, you can see your estimated benefit at age 62, your estimated benefit at full retirement age, your estimated benefit at age 70. You'll also see your earnings history and how future work could change your benefit. This is your data based on your earnings, adjusted for your work history. It's not averages, not opinions, not fear-based projections. And once you see these numbers, something important happens. The noise starts to fade. So before you look, the debate is abstract. After you look, it's personal. Now you're no longer asking, what should people do? You're asking, what does this mean for my life, my health, my stress, and my future? And that's where real decisions begin. We also want to address something that came up repeatedly in the comments. Some people said, easy for you to say you are rich. But let's be very clear. We're not rich. We're not telling anyone how to live. And this video is not financial advice. We're just explaining how Social Security works, what the rules are, and how different people think about this decision. Everyone watching has a different income history, health situation, family responsibility, and emotional relationship with money. And everyone has to find their own way, regardless of the situation. This part of the conversation is important because it lowers the temperature. It says disciplined planners are not villains. People who need certainty are not failures. And hardship is real and dignity matters. Once you remove judgment, people can actually hear the information. At this point, we've talked about fear, we've talked about strength, and we've talked about preparation, hardship, and why people land in very different places. Now, there are two forces left that quietly influence this decision more than almost anything else, and they rarely get discussed clearly, and that is healthcare and longevity. For many people, healthcare is the real reason that Social Security feels urgent, even if they don't describe it that way. Healthcare affects your monthly cash flow, your stress levels, sleep, and decision making. Before Medicare begins, income matters. It can affect ACA subsidies, deductions, out-of-pocket costs, and how manageable health insurance feels year to year. For some households, claiming Social Security earlier stabilizes income, simplifies planning, reduces uncertainty, and lowers emotional strain. And that matters, because decisions made under constant healthcare anxiety rarely feel good, even when the math looks fine. And this is why two people with similar savings can make completely different choices and both be right. When someone says you should always wait if you can, what they may not be factoring in is fluctuating insurance costs, unpredictable health events, or the emotional toll of navigating healthcare uncertainty year after year. Waiting might increase future income, but if increases present stress beyond what somebody can comfortably handle, it may not be the right trade-off. This is not about maximizing dollars. It's about managing risk across a real human life. Every Social Security debate eventually circles back to one uncomfortable truth. No one knows how long they'll live. Family history matters, health matters, lifestyle matters. But none of these come with guarantees. That's why Social Security isn't just income, it's insurance. Insurance against living longer than expected, inflation over decades, and running out of savings late in life. Waiting increases that insurance. Claiming early reduces uncertainty now. Neither option eliminates risk. They simply shift where the risk shows up in your life. And which risk feels more manageable is deeply personal. Another piece that often gets lost in comment debates is that Social Security decisions don't always affect just one person. For married couples, claiming decisions can affect spousal benefits, survivor benefits, and long-term household stability. In many cases, the higher earning spouse's benefits become the surviving spouse's benefits. That means that waiting can increase survivor income. Early claiming can reduce it. This doesn't just mean that everyone should wait. It means that couples should understand the trade-offs, not just the headlines. Again, information, not pressure. Taxes matter, but they are often misunderstood in Social Security decisions. Yes, Social Security benefits can be taxable depending on the total income. And yes, up to 85% of benefits may be subject to tax. No, that does not mean that you lose 85% of your benefits. Taxes interact with pensions, investment withdrawals, required minimum distribution, and overall income planning. This is another reason that Social Security decisions shouldn't be made in isolation or under fear. But taxes alone should rarely be the deciding factor. They're part of the picture, not the whole frame. At this point, if you still feel conflicted, that's okay. This decision is allowed to be hard. So instead of asking what's the best age to take Social Security, ask yourself these grounding questions instead. First, does this decision reduce or increase my stress right now? Second, can I comfortably fund the years before Social Security without panic? And third, which choice protects my peace of mind over time? There is no prize for waiting. There is no failure in claiming early. There is only alignment or misalignment with the life that you actually have. And that alignment feels calm. This topic gets heated because it touches something deeper than money. It touches fear of aging, fear of loss, fear of not having enough, and fear of making the wrong choice. And when people argue online, they're often trying to quiet those fears for themselves. That's why empathy matters here, because behind every strong opinion is a real life. So let me leave you with this. When your younger self prepared, worked hard, saved, and invested, your older self is thankful. And when life intervened and changed the outcome, that does not erase the effort, the discipline, or the worth of that journey. Some people take Social Security early from strength. Some take it early from necessity. Some wait because they can, and some wait because it gives them peace. All of these paths are valid. If this video has helped you in any way, we'd love to hear from you. not to argue and not to convince anyone, but to share. Which perspective do you relate to the most and why? Your story might help someone else feel less alone in this decision. Thank you for watching. Thank you for trusting us with a conversation that affects your life so deeply. And thank you for showing up in the comments with honesty, even when this topic is emotional. We'll see you in the next video.